So like everything you write, the main audience is not really people anymore. Because even the people that are going to read your stuff, they're reading it using an AI. You can literally just go like Command A, select all, and then delegate it to Cogen. You can just spawn off 100 of these simultaneously if that's what you want to do. You know, a lot of sort of what we call strategic thinking and prioritization and things like that. It's like we have to like draw a bunch of 2x2s and really figure out how to logic our way through it. Like that is something that they are excellent at. Say what you want about AIs, they're not really quite, good at the emotional stuff, like yet.
You and I made a slide before the interview. The point is to list all the skills that are still relevant, skills that are being disrupted and maybe already disrupted, and new skills that PM should build. Why don't we just talk about them one by one? Okay, welcome everyone. My guest today is Nan, head of product at Linear. Linear only has 2 PMs, but it's scaled to over 15,000 companies, including OpenAI, Ramp, and Mercury, and other great companies. And today I'm going to ask Nan to do a fun exercise with me to rank what PM skills will still matter in the AI era. And Nan will also demo his favorite AI workflows and Linear's new AI agents. So welcome, Nan.
Yeah, great to be here.
So let's start with this question. Why do you only have 2 PMs? and do you think we'll see like far fewer PM openings just in the industry?
I think the nature of the job is going to change quite a lot. Like we have very few PMs for a variety of reasons. Some of which are kind of luck, right? Like we have very skilled engineers and designers who can do a lot of what's traditionally been kind of done by PMs in terms of like discovery and sort of thinking through business cases and stuff like that. But we also wanted to hire very slowly on purpose. I think a lot of times when you have like a high growth company, people hire really, really quickly on the PM side because there's just too much stuff to keep track of, right? It's not necessarily even to build. It's like specifically to like, you just need more hands to maintain things. Like, oh, there's too many PRDs to maintain. There's too many updates to write. Like these very kind of mechanical types of needs that always ends up falling into the laps of PMs because we're just like the kind of glue, right? That holds things together. And we didn't want to hire people specifically because of that need, right? Because like that's something where even like 3 years ago we kind of saw that type of work being largely overtaken by AI, and we didn't want to be like stuck in a position where like, hey, we had a bunch of people to do this stuff, but now like this stuff is kind of free, and then we'd have to find like new things for them to do. We would rather kind of hire people for things that we think that they would be able to kind of own and kind of grow with for a long period of time.
Got it. So let's get like very practical here. Like let's pull up that slide that we made.
Yeah, sure.
So I think you and I made a slide before the interview, and the point is to list all the skills that are still relevant, skills that are being disrupted and maybe already disrupted, and new skills that PM should build. And why don't we just talk about them one by one, right? So let's start with like product taste. Like what does product taste actually mean? Like
Yeah.
What is product taste? Yeah.
I know it's weird, right? Because if you start describing it, then you're going to like go into all these detail and try to figure all the like minutia of it. And the real kind of meaning behind it is that like, do you can you like get a feeling for how like good or bad specific products or interactions just feel, right? And does the feeling that you receive from it, does that map to a large enough audience where you can like either be representative of them or at least like kind of run a simulation in your head about like, okay, here's how this person would feel in this situation. And a lot of it is very it's very kind of like lizard brain. There's not a lot of reasoning around it. It's just like you're just kind of trying to understand like what kinds of emotions that different like types of interactions and features kind of conjure up within you.
It's kind of like process, and to me, like process is like you just have to understand the customers. You have to like see enough products that you have a taste of what is good or bad, like that kind of stuff.
Yeah. Like, and a lot of times you'll have the feeling before you know why, right? Like you'll see a thing, you're like, oh, like they're gonna hate that or they're gonna love that, right? Like you're gonna have that feeling, and then you have to kind of work backwards from that, like and figure out like, okay, yeah, what is the actual reasoning, right? That I can explain to somebody about why they, why they would have such a strong emotional reaction.
Okay, got it. And number two is branding. So is it like personal branding, or what do you mean by branding?
I think it's both, right? It's certainly like product branding, like just even things like choosing the name of the thing in a way where like it communicates all of the information in a really compact package, and
Mm.
it's just like people will have an impression of your product from the very very smallest piece of information, and so part of your job is to figure out like how do you leverage those kinds of small touch points in order to like get them to have to be primed, right, to really receive what your product's message is, or what you're trying to do, but also personal brand, right? Like we see all these companies now where somebody's almost like influencer kind of profile, it leads all of the actual product market fit, right? You look at like Cluely, you look at all these kinds, especially on the AI
Yeah.
space, right? Like there's so much kind of like brand building, whether it's in a commercial or personal context before you even have a product. And I think that a lot of that is important because it's the really low hanging stuff has been picked. So you kind of you want to almost kind of work backwards again, right? Like kind of build the emotional resonance before you even have a value offering.
Yeah, it's interesting you mentioned Cluey because I'm not sure they actually have a viable product, but like their branding and their marketing is great.
Yeah. I don't know a single person that's used the product, but like but everyone I know knows about the
Knows
brand,
about
right?
it. Yeah. Okay. And then the third one is ownership and risk appetite. So is it like just having agency or yeah?
Yeah, I think these two things I think are really paired
Mm.
because people talk about ownership, like what does ownership mean? Oh, that means like you're responsible for the outcomes. And being responsible for the outcomes is only half of the equation, right? The other half is like you're going to try to get the best outcome possible, right?
Mm.
And there's some risk involved in that because you can't get the best outcome possible without incurring risk, right? If you go for the safest outcome, you might not completely fall flat, but it also means that your upside is really capped. So you kind of have to have the right amount of risk appetite and also own the result, which means that sometimes you're gonna have failures, right? You're gonna have to get knocked down and then try to maneuver your way back out, which is like super annoying, right? Especially in
Yeah.
a corporate context where you have political capital or whatever it happens to be, right? Like that's the game, and you have to really be ready and willing to play that game.
Mm. Yeah, you gotta like manage expectations and yeah. I mean, I feel like one skill that's relevant is maybe not a skill. Is like you just have to give a shit about the product, man. Like you just have to
Yeah,
like do whatever it takes to make it good.
yeah. You have to
Yeah.
care, and you have to be ready to just like be for people to look to you for whatever the result ends up being, right? Like when we
Yeah.
build a feature before we launch, it's like I know that all of the credit and the hard work happened on the engineering team and the design team who like built all this stuff. But if everyone hates it, like I'm the one they're going to be yelling at. So like I just have to understand that that's going to happen.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. And how about like number four is pretty interesting because like stakeholder management is kind of like at big companies, kind of like what a PM does all the time, right? Like it's
Mhm.
like 80%. But so you think that's still very important, right? Because people have to work with each other still. Is that,
Yeah, you have to work with each other, and then like especially in larger organizations, there's like you just have to get get enough budget and get enough runway to like let your ideas actually happen, right? You have to
yeah.
like manage resources and all that stuff, and it kind of goes back to sort of risk appetite, which also means that you have to know how much sort of like leeway you have, like how much can I piss these people off, but if the result is good, then everyone's gonna like smile and laugh and have a beer at the end, right? Like that's that you
Mhm.
kind of have to be able to make that calculation and go for it.
And I think that's actually kind of important even as a smaller company, right? Like even at Linear, you need to know you kind of want to learn how Kari thinks and like you want to you know make it easy to collaborate with other
Oh
folks,
yeah,
right?
for sure. Right. We're
Yeah,
not going to agree on 100% of things, and there's going to be some stuff where like, look, we're gonna take a bit of a risk here, and you're gonna have to come along with me a little bit. And sometimes if one of the founders of Kari or Jory or Twums have a very strong point of view, it's like okay, let's try your way, right? Like even if I think that my way has a higher chance of success, it's not like your idea is going to be zero. So like we can just do
yeah.
things in the opposite order as well.
So I guess like four directly ties to five, which is EQ or emotional intelligence. Like I guess it's both with customers and internally. Is that what you're thinking? Yeah,
Yeah, I mean, like I think all of these things really tie to emotional intelligence, right? Like the
yeah,
branding stuff. It's like you're basically getting all of the emotional, kind of framing and benefit before any of the actual, kind of physical value, right? And product taste is the same thing, and stakeholder management a big part of that.
Okay. I don't know. It's kind of hard. I don't know how to build emotional intelligence. It's hard to build, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
it is. I think the only successful way that I found to sort of practice it, right, is to really like make a concerted effort to say, like, if I was doing this job that my user is doing, like, I'm in B2B, right? So it's like always like, hey, if I was in their role and their position with their pressures and and stakeholders and stuff like that, what would be motivating me, right? What are my
Hmm.
motivations? What are my fears? And like to do that kind of analysis, and then you can start really kind of building that and start intuiting it.
Okay, so it's kind of like empathy and putting yourself in the customer or the stakeholder shoes, like that kind of.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and you can be kind of technical about it. You can literally just like do the economist thing and say, like, here's the actual incentives that are in front of me, and if I was acting according to these, what would I do?
Got it. Okay, that makes sense. Okay, well, let's talk about the second category, which is probably more fun to talk about. So the first one is kind of like a hot take, right? Like the strategy and prioritization. You're saying is being disrupted
Oh yeah,
by
of
AI?
course. I think if you ask people, right, like this is the trope, right? It's like, oh, AI is going to disrupt everyone's job except for mine, right?
Yeah.
Like that's everyone's kind of point of view, and or the sort of slightly better but still kind of motivated sort of thing they'll say is like, it'll disrupt all the parts of my job that are not important, right? The more
Yeah.
important parts of the job, like those are the parts that I can't touch, and like there's no physics about why that's true. Like the stuff that we said that are going to be kind of continue to be relevant are very like emotion oriented, and like like what say what you want about AIs, they're not really quite good at the emotional stuff like yet.
Mhm.
Um, but at reasoning and at like thinking through things in a in a kind of like organized fashion and pulling in all the evidence and considering a really broad scope, like they're very good at that. And a lot of the sort of what we call strategic thinking and prioritization and things like that, it's like we have to like draw a bunch of 2x2s and really figure out how to logic our way through it. Like that is something that they are excellent at, which is great, right? Because we're still responsible for that, and but it's gonna right now it's a tool that really helps us, but it's not going to be a thing that necessarily differentiates one person from another.
Yeah, like I always make my strategy now by just like making a AI project and then like asking it to do deep research and then like uploading a bunch of documents. And then I talk to it about the strategy. I'm like, hey, does this make sense? Does that make sense? And then
Yeah.
why not?
Yeah, yeah. It's a great thought partner there. It'll be rigorous. It'll be honest. Unless there's a weird model that you're working with right now. But like most
Yeah.
of the time, it'll be the it'll do the mental process that you wish you could do, right, really fast and all the time. And so it's just like if everyone has access to that, then that's not going to be the thing that makes one PM like a lot better than another.
Yeah. Like the trope that you like go off to a room and think hard by yourself, like doesn't work anymore. Yeah, it doesn't work. Um, okay. So the next one is data analysis and synthesis. So this is like getting AI to write SQL queries and like, find the insights, right?
Yeah. Yeah. And I think like with this kind of stuff, it's like there's a lot of sort of boilerplate and and kind of like the same logic, no matter what business you're at, kind of applied to the same problems. And
Yeah.
anything that has that shape, right, means that there's like a ton of training data out there. It means that the actions are pretty reproducible in multiple places, right? So like these things are are invariably going to become disrupted. The speed at which some of these things are affected is not going to be equal, right? Like we talk about AI having like sort of like a ragged edge, right? Like it's not going to be equally good at everything simultaneously, but everything that is is very sort of like logical and sort of step by step and reasoning oriented. It's gonna end up touching sooner or later.
Yes, it's not very good at like simple math yet, but like for like writing SQL queries, if you get the table names and stuff, it's great.
Yeah,
it's
and
kind, it's
it's
kind of
like,
weird. Yeah.
and that's what it is right now, right? It's like a thought partner, right? In that way,
Yeah.
and and the way we talk about being disrupted, and what that means is like like if you rewind the clock a little bit, right? You have two PMs, like one of them like quote knows SQL, which means that they can like get the database to say anything to them at all, right? And then
Uh-huh.
another one is just like I don't know, it's just like I have to have an analyst, otherwise there's no way I can even get any kind of result. And like that difference, that sort of like very basic difference is evaporated, right? So now it's like okay, you have to kind of move higher level with like interpretation and those kinds of things, and and the AI is not necessarily the best at that yet, but like it's clearly on that path.
That's great, man. Because I don't want to learn SQL. Like, it's not a fun thing to learn. Yeah.
I know. My joke is like I never learned regular expressions because like I just never got around to it. It was always gonna be I'll learn it next year or something like that. And then now we're at a point where I never need to learn regex ever again. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. And the next one is market research. So I feel like, I get these emails from like Berkeley kids. Like they're like, there's like a Berkeley. Okay, if you're listening to this from Berkeley, like don't take it the wrong way. But there's like this Berkeley consulting club or like some college consulting club. And they're like, hey Peter, I can do market research for you for this industry, like for like 3 months.
Yeah.
I'm like, dude, like let me just use deep research to do it. Like why do I need you? So I feel like a lot of this is gone. It's like, yeah.
Yeah. I mean, the research is interesting, right? Like the cases that you just like talked about where you're kind of doing, I know it's a deep research. It's like kind of shallow, right? It's like kind of like a first pass type of research where you're going in kind of naive and you're learning all the low hanging stuff. Like that part has been completely overtaken. And that's usually what these kinds of like consulting clubs and stuff like that like are offering. The research right now, right? That's kind of gonna, that exists. It's like if you are an analyst and you have a couple of things that you follow over a very long period of time, and you like are having like dinners with like the executives and really understanding their their personal emotions and all that kind of stuff like that's still alive, right? Like that kind of research, great, but that's a very very special like kind of like high touch type of research.
Yeah, that's like it's like they're doing primary and secondary research, right? Like you're actually getting like new information.
Yeah,
like, yeah. And then project management is, I guess that's what Linear is also trying to serve, right? Like, what do you mean by project management? You mean like Jira tickets and stuff, or what are you thinking? Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, project management, it's a really wide space, right? And this it's not being sort of evenly, kind of attacked, but a lot of it is keeping track of details, right? Like if you think about like, hey, like name the best PM you ever worked with, right? Oh, sorry, best project manager you ever worked with, and tell me some good qualities about them. And like invariably, someone will say, oh, they're very detail oriented. They notice every little thing. They read every single document. They like have all the details in their head all loaded in, and they always know the current state of affairs. Mm-hmm. It's like, that sounds like a computer to me, right? Like that, like what you're describing is like, you might even say like, oh yeah, they were like a machine, right? Like that's like a metaphor you would use. And computers used to be bad at this because they couldn't interpret a lot of these things, right? If someone wrote like in a document, this is an emergency, everyone pull your hair out, like the computer wouldn't understand the severity of that, whereas now it kind of can, so like so the all of the the little bit of intelligence that we have right now, what it's really unlocked, right, is a whole bunch of diligence, right? Because the computers are super duper diligent, right? They're super detail oriented. They're always online as long as you plug them into the wall. But they just weren't intelligent at all before. Now that they've have a little bit of intelligence, it's unlocked all of that diligence that they already come with.
But I feel like there is like a obsession about detail part of project management, like pointing out little details, little inaccuracies in the product. I guess you can use AI for that too, but like you also just need to care enough about the stuff. So maybe that's a product taste. Or
that's a product taste thing, right? Like AI could probably do things like say like, oh, there was a visual regression here or whatever it is, but they can't say like really like, hey, I think this design is incongruent, or this like the vertical rhythm of this page doesn't make sense, or like this button's ugly or whatever it is, right? Those are still kind of up to opinion.
Okay, that's great. And you tweeted like this is kind of random, but you tweeted that we finally stopped talking about empower PMs. Like, remember this? Yeah, like, dude, I was never into that whole thing, man. Like, I don't even know what that means.
Yeah, it's like we're trying to ship product at the end, right? Like we're trying to make an outcome happen, make customers satisfied and everything. It's just like if that's the result, then how you get there really doesn't really have that big of an effect.
Yeah, it's not like black and white,
Yeah.
So, okay, and then I separated summarizing research and documentation, because you made a point that this stuff is already disrupted, right? Like, I guess summarizing it makes sense. Like you just like get to summarize.
Yeah. Yeah, I think summarizing and documentation are like almost the same thing, right? You have
Yeah.
you have some kind of input source. With research, it's like, okay, here's all the sources that I found on the internet or in some archive. With documentation, it's like you have a code base, you have a whole bunch of opinions that people have, and decisions that were made and things like that. And you're just taking all of that and you're collating it into one spot, right? Into
Yeah.
one research report, into one document. And then the next part, right, which is the hard part, is something changed and now you have to update it, right? So someone changed
Mhm.
their mind about what the direction we're going, so you got to update the documentation, or there's a new development, so the research is out of date, so you have to like amend it with like the new findings. And that part is, once again, not that hard to do. You need a little bit of intelligence to do it, but you
Yeah.
need a whole lot of diligence, right? You need a whole lot of, I'm just going to stare at all of the sources, and the moment one of them changes, I'm going to act really fast, right? And when we talked about like why doesn't Linear hire a bunch of PMs, it's like a lot of times people hire PMs because they want that dynamic. They want a bunch of eyeballs on all this stuff, right? That you have to like think about. And the moment something changes, they're like, oh, someone's got to be really diligent and just update all of the documentation immediately.
Yeah.
And like we're like, look, I'm not going to hire someone because of that, because I think computers are going to do that just for you 100% of the time, way better than any human could. And I'm okay in the interim just not having that benefit, and because I want to actually force us to like, at the earliest possible moment, like to get our computers to do it.
That makes sense. That makes sense. Yeah. I mean, even right now, when I get a bunch of stakeholder feedback, like I just talk to AI, be like, hey, here's my document. Can you update this document based on stakeholder feedback? And then maybe bold your edits so that I can see what you changed, so that I can like just do a sanity check. Like,
Yeah.
like I'm not gonna do it all by myself. Yeah.
Right. Exactly.
Um, okay. And then new skills to build. I think these are pretty self-explanatory. I guess I put context engineering here because it is more than just prompt engineering. Like you got to think about what to load into the AI's context and how to manage it well, right?
Yeah.
To not get overwhelmed. And then evals, I'm sure there's like whole episodes on that, like making sure the AI's responses are overall, make sense or accurate. But like AI workflow design and AI agent management, like this is like kind of directly what Linear is also working on, right?
Yeah. I mean, workflow design and context engineering are very closely related, right? Like context
Yeah.
engineering is sort of understanding like, okay, like what information, would this model need to have better performance for the job I'm hiring it for, right? And then workflow design is, okay, now how do I make sure that it's always able to receive the right type of context at the right time? So those two things like really kind of kind of build on each other, right? And part of workflow design includes like, well, how do I want the agent to behave? Like if it doesn't have the right context, how does it know, right, that it needs to go gather more? And then like what
Yeah.
tools do I give it to go to go actually like help itself, right, gather the context that it needs? So I think context engineering is really about how do I, like, what kind of context does it need? And then the workflow design is like, okay, now what is the like dynamic process by which it keeps getting the right context?
Okay. So like what kind of tools can you use, or like what kind of steps should it take to get the right context for yourself?
Yeah, exactly. And some of that stuff we still have to we still have to like actually make specific prompts, right? It's like, hey, if you're in this situation, then like go here, like look here first, and all that kind of stuff. So there's a bit of kind of instruction that the models still need, but like it's getting sort of like better and better as time progresses.
Okay. And agent management is kind of like, I mean, we all have this fantasy, or maybe it's becoming reality of like, we have like 5 AI agents that just does the work for us, and we just kind of manage them.
Yeah.
Yeah. Is that reality, or is that still kind of far off a little bit?
It's I think these things are so unevenly distributed. It's reality in some corners sometimes,
Hmm.
right? Where there are some cases where you can literally just say a couple of words and dispatch an agent, and it'll just handle it for you, and then you're done. I think sometimes it's the number of words you need to say are actually a lot greater than you expect, and it's very easy to underspecify. And
Yeah.
I think that's one aspect of agent management, is to know like how detailed you have to be, right? Like, do you need to really micromanage these agents, or are you perfectly fine just kind of like giving it a general direction, and it's going to do something that's good enough for you to accept the performance? And then once you're in that mode, then it also becomes like, okay, how many of these things do you like juggle at the same time, and like understanding something about how asynchronous you have to be, given the sort of current state of technology and stuff. But I think a lot of agent management is really about like how under or over specified do you actually need to make your instructions.
Yeah, that's a good point. So like my take is that the PRD isn't dead. It's just you're just getting AI to write it, and then like it's kind of like merging a little bit with the prompt.
Yeah.
Like when I want to cloud code to build something, like I asked to make like a pretty detailed PRD on like the tech stack and everything, right? Like the milestones.
Yeah.
I'm just not writing it by myself, Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's really true, right? One of the things I try to tell people is that like everything you write it's the main audience is not really people anymore, because even the people that are going to read your stuff, they're reading it using an AI, right? So like if I write
Yeah.
an issue, like in linear today, if I write an issue, the first thing that reads that issue is our AI. Right. And it uses that issue, and it goes in and it finds all sorts of like related issues, and tries to figure out who should work on it and stuff like that. Like, so I need to know, I sort of know in the back of my head that like when I write this issue, I need to give the AI enough information to do its job, which also happens to be really helpful for people, right? So when someone else reads it, they go like, okay, cool, it has all the right information, right? It has all the repro steps or whatever. But before it was kind of a squishy thing, right? You're like, if I don't put enough detail, then someone's going to yell at me and be upset. But now if I don't put enough detail, then all the automations won't work. So, like the motivation is actually quite different.
Yeah, that makes sense. Yeah. Yeah, that's why I keep all my documents to like a half a pager of key points and then maybe a bunch of appendices. Because if my main doc is more than half a page, someone will just use AI to summarize it.
Yeah.
It's exactly. Like, okay, great. So this is pretty tactical. So hopefully people can use this table to figure out what skills they need to work on. All right, man. So let's talk about linear a little more. So, this podcast is actually called Behind the Craft. So this is why I love talking to you and, working with linear. But I think people have a misconception about craft. Like people think that craft is kind of like what Apple does, where like you just kind of keep working on something for like a year and then you have a big bang and like, oh, this is like super polished, super beautiful stuff. What is your point of view on that? Like between craft and speed?
Yeah, I think it's software, like Apple's a hardware company, right? So all of their working processes and things like that originate in sort of like a hardware, design and development space. Like, retooling, hardware, like production lines, it's like enormously expensive. So it just makes a lot of sense, right? If you want high quality in that universe, you have to really, really make sure that, things are super polished before you go to mass production. Software you can deploy and undeploy and continuously integrate and all this kind of stuff, like with basically no cost. So the idea for even though the end goals are the same, right, the ideas around how to like get to that high craft, high quality final state are quite different. And then for us, it's not about like whittling on something until it's perfect. It's about just getting as many feedback loops as possible, because every iteration that you go through makes the thing better. And it tells you, it tells you about how your product fits into the world way more than you could by just thinking very hard about it. So, for us, like the way to get to really high quality outcome is to get to a working version as absolutely fast as possible. So like the rule of thumb is like, about 10% of the amount of like time budget that you have. Like by the time 10% has elapsed, you should have something that gets the job done, and that you can start, applying taste to, or you can start feeling like, does this feel good? Like what would make it feel good? Right. In my workflow, is it close? Are there moments of where it feels great and it's just like uneven, or is it just like consistently feels bad? Right. Like there's all of those types of judgment calls that you want to be able to make, but you can't do that until you're able to sort of use the product in a real situation.
Yeah. And then how do you get feedback? You have like a beta groups and you have people like both internally, I guess, and with real customers, right? To get feedback.
Yeah. We have what we call like a Russian doll release process, where we have like sort of nested audiences that get bigger and bigger as time progresses. So the first audience is just the developers, right, who are working on it, and we use our own products, so they're able to kind of like play with it and things. And then the next audience is just people who work at Linear, so the internal audience. And and then from there it'll escalate to like a select beta, like a public beta, and then pre-release, and then production, right? So like there's like a whole bunch of different shells that this thing goes through
Yeah.
as it reaches wider and wider audience. Like we had a big release yesterday, and I was like, okay, anything we want to take care of before we go to GA? And then the engineers were like, I don't know, it's been in like all these different beta levels. Like I have absolutely no fear of anything falling over or anything like that, because it's just been battle tested already.
Yeah, this is such like a no-brainer thing, man. Like I don't know why more companies don't do this. Just like roll out to more people progressively, right, and make the product better. It's like, why do you want to risk it with like a big launch? It's weird.
Yeah, I don't know either. I think it's pretty, I think it's pretty obvious. Everywhere I've gone, I've installed this kind of process, and I don't think anyone's really felt bad about it. So I think there's so much of this stuff is path dependent, right? Someone just has to decide that this is something worth doing.
But how do you like in that 10% of the initial version, right? Let me push a little bit. Like how do I like if I want to ship something to Kyrie or something, like he has like very high standards, right? So like how do I make it actually not look like crap, or like what do you focus on in the 10%? Is like the core experience, or
yeah, the core experience, right? Like you might not cover all the edge cases, you kind of just want to make sure that the golden path does the thing you expect it to do.
Got it.
And then if someone is using it enough to like run into edges, then that's good. That's a good thing, right? Oh, you ran into an edge case? Great. That means you were using it way past the golden path.
Yeah. Got it. And yeah, that is especially for AI products, because like, there's like so many edge cases. Yeah. Okay. And I think another thing about, let's talk about AI products real quick. So I feel like with AI products, you gotta write these evals, right? To like, to make sure that it scores high on certain attributes. And that is also kind of like a balance between speed and craft. Because like, if you're just starting to write a prompt, like you probably shouldn't write 200 test cases, because like your prompt will change dramatically as you learn, So you kind of have to balance that too. Like I'm not sure if you've seen that.
Yeah, I mean, for us, a lot of our eval development, like we start with like no evals, right? And then as we kind of start deploying to bigger and bigger groups of people will give us feedback about like, hey, I said this and I expected this outcome, but it did this other weird thing instead. And then we can like analyze, okay, what went wrong here? Like what might we change about the prompt to sort of make sure that we cover this kind of case? And then is there an eval that we can build against this feedback that we just got? So it's a very active and iterative development process.
Okay, yeah, that makes a lot more sense than trying to like do like 200 golden evals, like in the very beginning. Yeah, that makes a lot more sense. Okay, so what happens is like, so you're building this like in these concentric circles, and then the people are like, hey, like this could be a lot better with this feature or that feature. Like, how do you keep the product simple, man? Like, because like especially for like B2B, right? People want all kinds of things. Like, how do you make those trade-offs?
Yeah, I don't think there's one way to make these trade-offs, and I think where a lot of like kind of PMs maybe fall into like a trap is that they think that there's some philosophy that you can have that just makes every decision for you. That like, oh, I don't have to think anymore because like we have this policy, and the policy could be something like, the customer's always right, so we'll always say yes to every request, or like, oh no, we only want to do things one way, and we're going to remain like really rigid and not do anything people ask us for. So I think a lot of it is like about picking and choosing, where you're going to be really opinionated and specific, right? Where you're going to be more purposeful, right, with like really saying defaults, but also kind of understand that there's some edges that you have to cover, and then where you're going to be just fairly unopinionated and make it a very configuration first kind of experience. And I think in this space in particular, a lot of the trap is everyone ends up being like fully configurable, configuration first for every decision, which is not what you want, because then you're just like releasing the product design choices to administrators effectively, and then everyone has a really weird experience because like their admin may not be the best product designer in the world, right? So it becomes a very strange situation for users. So for us, like when we think about it, like of all the decisions that a company makes, right, like the highest order decision is like, what industry am I going to be in? Am I a steel mill? Am I a software company? Am I a restaurant? Like, look, we have no opinion about that. Like whatever business you want to play in, like that's 100,000% like your decision, right? And the sort of the high level like strategic decisions, like are we going to run OKRs? Are we going to run like more kind of strategic initiatives or whatever it is? Like, and we're not going to have a strong opinion about that either. But as it gets more and more specific into individual actions, that software developers are taking or are sort of forced to take in their day-to-day, like minute to minute kind of workflow, that's where we're going to put a lot more guidance and a lot more kind of like defaults into the product, right? So it kind of gets more focused as you get into that layer. So that's the general way, right, that we kind of are able to expand to larger and larger companies, retain the flexibility that they want, but also don't like make the experience totally weird for ICs, right? Because ICs want a predictable experience that helps them get their job done day to day, because like their job is to make designs, write code, talk to customers, whatever. Their job is not to like push buttons inside of Linear. So that's how we like try to make those kinds of trade-offs.
So that is the IC kind of like the ideal customer profile, like because like sometimes their needs are different from like a manager or like an admin, right? It's like
yeah. I think ideal for us, a customer is a company, right? It's an organization. So in terms of like users, right? They are certainly our most ubiquitous user, right? If you just count the number of individual seats that exist inside of Linear, the vast majority of them are going to be ICs. So that's who we have to make sure that the experience is like kind of always stable and consistent and not not annoying, right? All that kind of stuff, right? Like that's the number one priority. Just like, literally because they are our most common user. And then as you kind of move up in the sort of layers of management, we have to give them flexibility without negatively impacting the IC experience.
Got it. That's a really good way to look at things. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. And also another tip that I have found is that like when someone's asking for a feature, like you can just ask them like, hey, what problem are you trying to solve? And then maybe just a better way to solve the problem than what they're asking for.
Yeah. That happens all the time. I think one of the things for anyone out there who's like building for a sort of like PM, or project manager kind of audience, one of the things that you're going to go into this sector assuming is that PMs are going to come at you with like really, really strong opinions, right? They're going to be like, oh yeah, there's my process and my way of doing things. And that's not actually true, right? Like they have to form those strong opinions because they have to get everyone to kind of go along for the ride, so that when they explain it to people, it's going to sound like they've just like really thought it through and everything's like super perfect. And the reality is like they're kind of figuring it out as they go along. So if you come and you provide them with like a framework that they can like lean on and use to get their job done, like they'll be very happy about it.
Yeah, PMs always have strong opinions. Yeah, but you gotta challenge them.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's great. So let's kind of wrap up by actually hopefully having you demo some of the new AI agent or AI features in Linear, or how you use it with other AI products. Yeah. So maybe you can demo like some of your favorites.
Yeah. I think I have a few that I have ready for you here. So let me share my screen. First, I'll start inside of Claude, and one of the things that what I'm going to show you is real tools that I use on basically a daily basis, right? These are things that happen all the time, that and that work at production grade quality today, right? So this is not like pie in the sky, like, oh, it would be cool with. This is like real stuff. So the first thing I'll show you is our MCP server, basically, right? So you can use most of your AI tools available today, like Cursor, or in this case Claude, to access Linear through the MCP, which means that you can do a lot of the sort of normal kind of analysis or coding kind of workflows in these tools without having to like do a whole bunch of weird setup, right? So you just do a bit of OAuth to connect your MCP, and now I'm gonna do a quick analysis, right? So we have this project that we're kind of developing right now called release management, and there's a bunch of like customer requests and feature requests and stuff like that attached to it. I just want to do an analysis, like what have people been saying? Get me started, right? If I'm a new PM on this project, I don't know, like we're doing kind of the initial batch of like what information have we collected already, right? So I'm just gonna ask Claude to do this, and then Claude is gonna start using the MCP tools to get all of the project details and the issues inside of it and the customer requests and start thinking about it. This is where you get up and you go have a cup of coffee, right? It's going to take a few minutes to do this, which is fine, right? Because if I was going to manually read all this stuff, it would take hours easily. Provided that I could even find the stuff, right? So it's doing all the automated lookup and things like that. So here we go. It found the project. It looked at some issues. It's looking at some other, it's like, hey, I found the main body of issues. I'm going to look for, other issues that are maybe, they maybe have different parameters. So it's looking specifically, for some details for these other issues that it found, right? So that's what's going on here. And now it's going to write, hey, I found 28 customer requests against this. And then here's my analysis of what people have been asking for around this subject. Yeah. And all this information is like inside of Linear, right? So if I ever want to kind of link back to it, I can ask it for references and things like that. And this is the first kind of starting point, right? This is the first basic analysis that Claude is making. This is the start of a conversation, right? So at this point, you kind of go back and forth. I might say, what are the top 3 thematic areas within this, right? So I can sort of, okay, what are the 3 big rocks that I'm looking for, right? So it's like release visibility. Like, yes, I think so. I've been thinking about this for a while. So like I agree with this, right? Like a big part of release management is just visibility for people outside of the development team. Directly, implementing with version control platforms so that, when the binary goes out, it, Linear knows about it. And it's sort of like workflow, like, kind of building the change log and all that kind of stuff, right? So like this, very much jives with all my user interviews and things like that. But also it's, for somebody who just wants to know, like, hey, what's the state of our research? Like, what have we been learning from customers? You can just do this. This is, anybody who has Claude installed who works at Linear can do this.
Yeah, this is awesome. Yeah, even if I had to, without the MCP, I'll have to do a bunch of copy and pasting into Claude, which is a pain to ask. So yeah, this is a lot.
Yeah. And like, when we talk about like workflows, that's what this is, right? It's like, yeah, you could have done all this. I could like dump everything to a CSV and like throw it into here and copy pasting them. And it's like, no, I issued like 2 commands. Like that's kind of where you want to be. Okay.
And can the MCP actually make changes too, or is it mostly reading information?
Right now it's reading. We're developing the right endpoints as well, but you kind of have to be a little bit careful with those because you don't want agents going completely wild and overriding a bunch of your data.
Yeah. Yeah, got it. Okay, cool. And what's the next use case that you want to show me?
The next use case is something that we actually just released yesterday as of this taping. So let me find it for you here. It's cool. This is something that we've been using internally for months, right? We just did the full public launch yesterday. It's called Product Intelligence, and I'm gonna just make it a little bit bigger. And then just to give you a basic framing, right? In Linear, there's a concept called triage. So like whenever someone reports a new bug or requests a new feature or something like that, it goes into this triage state. And originally we provided this very kind of structured way for you to kind of assign somebody to like monitor it, to like make sure that they're asking for the right questions and directing to the right people. But so that's good, right? You have a structured process, but like the problem with that structured process is that you're kind of reliant on this person to like have enough institutional knowledge to know what to do with all of these incoming issues. And if they didn't know, they would have to like ask somebody. It'd be a whole kind of research process basically for them, right? They could use the tools to like search for stuff. And at some point we're like, okay, how much of this can we actually automate? Can we like completely transform this from a tedious kind of research process to a little mini game where you can go like, oh yeah, okay, great, yeah, yep, and then you like approve some kind of suggestions, right? So for this example here, someone said, hey, I want to allow applying templates to to existing projects basically, and immediately Product Intelligence found a couple of things, right? It's like, hey, I think I found the right team, the right assignee, the right project, and then here's like a tag that might make sense for it. And if you kind of hover over the suggestions, like, hey, why was Maciek suggested for this? And it's just like, well, he's the lead for the project templates project, and he's also been the assignee for several related issues to this.
Oh, nice.
So I think he's the right person, right? So even if I don't assign Maciek, I know like if I have a question, I know exactly who to ask, right? Hey, is this sensible? Whatever it is, like there's 100 people in the company. Who do I ask? It's like, well, clearly I'm asking Maciek like this particular question. It also found a duplicate. And it said like, hey, I think this is basically the same. It's not the same title, right? But I think it's basically asking for the same thing as this other issue that already exists. And here's the explanation, right? It looks like it directly addresses the same thing. It has multiple customer, and like the one that found has a bunch of customer requests on it. So it thinks like, oh, that's probably the main one. So if you're gonna do anything, you should mark this one as a duplicate of that one, right? So it has like a little bit of opinion about what action I should take. Wow. So I'm like, yeah, I think that's correct. So I'm gonna hit this check mark. It says mark it as duplicate, great. And I've taken care of this, right? So now all of the information that's attached to this new customer request, this new report gets merged into that main issue, and then we can kind of move on with our lives.
Oh, that's great. So it both adds like relevant metadata and also finds like other tickets that are similar. Yeah.
Yeah.
Because otherwise I have to do this manually, and they'll take like trying to prune the backlog is just pain in the ass too.
yeah, I know. It's one of the things that we just like. Oh yeah, well that's one of your jobs. It's like prune the backlog, right? It's like why did you hire a whole bunch of PMs? Well, we gotta have somebody to prune the backlog. It's like, okay, what if we made that like 100 times easier?
Yeah, this is awesome. I can like, dude, I feel like maybe there's also a way to have like a public facing thing where like you can see like the tickets that people are working on. Like, you know how like some companies share their public roadmap with their users? That could be interesting for Linear too. Yeah.
The nice part is when you go to the thing I just merged it into, right? If I look at this, and you can see all of these customer requests that are attached to it. All of these things are a result of other issues being like duplicated into this, right? Because the system knows. So as soon as another request comes in, it goes like, I know what this is. This is a duplicate of this other big huge issue over here, and then you just mark it, and it kind of accumulates the data. So then when a PM has to come in and they see this big issue with a bunch of customer requests on it, then they fire up Claude and go like, help me analyze the customer request and then figure out what's like being asked for here and all the little nuances and details, right? So like the whole system kind of works together.
So is there a way to like summarize all those things here? Like
not in the app right now, but this is one of the uses for the MCP. Like I could like copy the issue ID and ask Claude be like, summarize it for me.
Okay, that makes sense. Yeah, because cool. Yeah, the less reading the PM has to do, the better.
Yeah, that's the idea. So then cool. Another case. This is another one of these, right? Things that's in triage, and this one, is the same sort of thing, right? It's a bunch of suggestions. It kind of suggested this team, and I think what's interesting here is that like this product team like owns the list sorting behavior, right? And I think that idea, like we have very few teams, but like a lot of times you're like, I don't even know what team is like is meant to like think about this, right? It's like, it's not even like, forget what person. It's like, I don't even know what team to put this on, right? So this is one of these things where like, look, at least I can maybe just hand it over to them, put it in their triage queue, and then they can figure out what to do with it next, right? So you don't have to like fully take action on it. It's enough for you to like move it forward in the progress.
Yeah, with all this feature, I've seen a lot of people just asking on Slack, hey, which team is responsible for this ticket? And it takes forever to figure out.
Yeah, it takes forever. You do that, and then you forget to, no one answers, and a week later you're like, oh wait, no one answered my question, and it's still sitting here. You don't have to deal with any of that anymore.
Okay. All right, and last but not least, you have something else to show us?
It's actually in two parts. The first bit I want to kind of show you is actually down here, which is like this. This person asked for a this is just another feature request from a customer. And then, and what it asks for is like, hey, I want to sync my cycles with calendars, right? And in the discussion thread, we discovered like, wait, do we already have this? Right? Like, I'm like, do we already have this? And then, this colleague of mine, he's on the support team. He's like, yeah, I think we do. Like, here's where we talk about it. And then, maybe he found some documentation or something. But I really want to make sure. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to ask one of the agents that's living in our workspace, right? And this is not an agent developed by us. This is a third-party coding agent that somebody else developed that's using our agent platform. And I'm going to just ask this agent. The agent's name happens to be Charlie. Do we sync cycles to calendars, right? So I'm just going to ask. Okay. And just like it would a person, right? So the thing you said about you go to Slack and you like mention somebody like, hey, like, what do we do here, right? So like Charlie's going to like see this. It's going to say, hey, I'm going to review this stuff. And then Charlie's just going to look in the code base, right? Because like, we've all been through this. We're an engineer. We're like, hey, is this how the system actually behaves? And then you have to like ask an engineer, and then they like dig through the code. Like, yeah, okay, yeah, it looks like that's exactly what it's behaving as expected or whatever, right? Like we've all done this. You don't have to do that anymore, right? You do not have to bother an engineer, take time out of their day to like drop what they're doing, to go do a little research project for you to just tell you that the code base works the way that you think it does, right? You can just ask an agent to do it for you. It's going to take a few minutes, but again, like engineers going to take a couple of hours to do this, right? So again, go have a cup of coffee, and then when you come back, there's going to be a comment on here that tells you whether or not this is how the system works. So we're gonna chill here for a second and wait for that to happen. But
that's great. Yeah, and this is pretty low risk, right? Because it's just trying to read the code. It's not making any major changes or anything.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. And then I'll sort of, while we're waiting for this, I'll sort of show you a different scenario. Okay. Here's another question I have prepared. Tweaks and blah blah blah. Yeah. So in this case, I'm like, hey, what's the system prompt we're using to do this? Right. I'm like the system behaving kind of weird. Like, what's the actual system prompt? So I'm gonna ask that, and we'll sort of see what happens. Okay, so we waited for a while, right? We had a coffee for Charlie to do his work, and and we came back, and Charlie says, "Yeah, cycles can sync the calendars per team on an ICS." So like this is confirming what our what our support team member suspected, right? Based on the discussion that you found. I just wanted to double check. I'm like, I've never heard of this feature before. I just want to make sure this is actually happening. And then Charlie's like, "Yeah, I found it in the code base. It's a hot code path. We're good." And like normally, I might go to an engineer to confirm this, and they're gonna have to drop what they're doing. They're gonna think about it, and I'll wait for them, and now I'm gonna owe them a favor, right? Like that's usually how these things go. I don't have to do that anymore, right? Like this is a question that as long as it exists, right? There's the context out there, and you can reason through it. The agents can find an answer for you.
This is awesome. Yeah, this is great.
Cool. All right. So the last sort of thing is, Charlie and other agents that we have on the platform, they're all coding agents, right? So they can actually, write code for you. So I'll demonstrate that, but I'm going to switch workspaces to my personal workspace here, because I don't want to write any code in the production code base on accident while I'm doing this. And all right, so to sort of kind of set the stage here, right? I have a personal website. And that personal website, it's based off of a static site generator. I'll sort of show you what it looks like, right? This is my personal site. Here it is. Mm-hmm. This is like the development version of it. And you can see it. You can see that it's in dark mode, right? Like that. And what it does is because my operating system's in dark mode. It follows your your OS. And what I want to do, let's say, is I want to like add like a little control for users to be like, hey, if you want to just switch it to the light mode, version of it, like go ahead and do that, right? That's no problem. But I don't want to write that feature, right? Like I gotta design a button and figure out how to do the CSS and local storage and everything. Okay, whatever. So I'm just gonna write the issue like I normally would. Like, hey, right now it's controlled by media query. But I want to give people a way to toggle this on and off without and have it saved in local storage, and then they can just do it there, right? So instead of being media query, I want you to have control. And I also have some opinions about styling, right? I would like use a simple text link as a control, no buttons or emojis or anything, no borders, just plain text, right? Like that's
okay.
I'm very specific about the look that I want, right? Because I don't have any icons on my website. So if I want to do this, I could write the code, or I could hire an engineer, or I could just assign it to one of the coding agents that lives on the platform, right? So Linear has an open platform. Agents it can be deployed into Linear, right? Any kind of coding agent out there that's built support for Linear can do so. So we have this one installed in this workspace called CodeGen, right? It's a really great company that we work with. And what I can do is I can just assign this issue to this agent, right? So when I do that, you'll see something interesting happens here, right? I have a responsibility for this ticket, and CodeGen is doing the work, right? So like this is something that we directly express inside of Linear, because like one of the things that you really, really want to make sure when you're deploying agents into your production environment is that some human being has responsibility for the outcome, right? This is like this is like really, really important, right? You can't just be like, oh, the robot did it and it shipped a bug, or it dropped the table, or whatever it is, right? You can't any kind of, or if it did something well, like, hey, like this is a great feature, who built this? It's like, well, the robot built it. It's like no, yeah, but someone like was working with the robot in kind of a high bandwidth way to build the feature, right? So so I delegated it to CodeGen. So CodeGen's working. You can see this is like the connected kind of thread here. If I want to understand the sort of chain of thought and what's going on, I can open up this panel and sort of see, okay, here's what CodeGen's doing, like the sort of normal coding agent kind of thing, where it's thinking about what it should do first, making a plan, starting with the CSS, right, and kind of going from there. like any other coding agent, it's going to take a little while. So again, go have a coffee and you'll come back to a pull request hopefully.
Okay.
The interesting part about this, right, is that you can choose to babysit it like I'm doing right now, or if you're really efficient, right, you can you have a backlog. Like every engineer's got like a whole bunch of tickets assigned to them, and some of them are kind of low hanging and can probably be achievable in this way. You can literally just go like Command A, select all, and then delegate it to Cogen or to any other agent that you're using. Right. This is a new pattern that you can just do. You can just spawn off 100 of these simultaneously if that's what you want to do, and then they're all going to eventually come back. Like Cogen just has here, it says like, hey, here's the PR, right? And then I've done here's a small sort of kind of summary of what I did, right?
Yeah.
And if I want to, I can go to that PR. I can check out. I'm going to go to the PR right now. Here it is. I'm going to copy the branch. I'm going to check it out and see what it did, right? So let's take a look. This is some live stuff here. So let's see what happened. Okay, so I've pulled it down and let's see what it did. Okay, great. It added this little link up here, and I'm going to click it and it's going to switch it to light mode, right? So it did exactly what I said. I said give me a very small link in the corner, make it only text, don't make it a button with an icon, and have it be really simple, right? And it kind of did those things.
Yeah, that's great. And now you can set the PR, and then
yeah, I can set the PR. I can merge it. I can do whatever. I can go and manually tweak it, right? I can even go back into the issue, right? And and ask Cogen to make modifications if I want to. Right? So it's like it's a thing. It's a very natural kind of interaction that you can do.
Okay, this is awesome. Thanks for showing all three use cases. Yeah. So yeah, it's great that it can both read the code and also make changes to the code, and even you can get multiple agents to submit multiple PRs at the same time. You probably should double check his work even more, but you can do that. So let's wrap up this question, man. Like so Linear started as a simple kind of ticket tracking tool, right? And what is the future here? Is the future here to build this kind of like operating system where agents and humans can talk to each other and like work on a product together? Is that kind of the idea? Or
yeah, I mean, I think that's what almost like the very near future looks like. It's a system, because like right now, like Linear's ultimately, if you zoom out enough, right, it's a system where you're kind of coordinating work across a lot of different independent kind of acting people. Yeah. And agents are shaped a lot like that. They're different, right? And they're different in that in the ways that we talked about, where like you can't hold them accountable for outcomes or anything like that. So you have to continue to involve people in the mix, but they also do act in a lot of the same ways, where they make decisions, they can do work, kind of out of band. They can report back on what they did. They can do all of this, these kinds of activities. So in a lot of ways, they're a new kind of user of Linear system. Again, with sort of like special caveats.
Mm-hmm. All right, so hopefully, I think I'll start a new Linear project with like I'll onboard a bunch of agents.
Yeah,
to code for me and design for me, and yeah, life will be good. Yeah, cool. All right, now, well, where can people find you online and learn more?
Yeah, I think I'm most visible on X or Twitter. My handle is the Nan Yu, TheNanyu. And DM me. Kind of take a look at the stuff I'm sharing, and then that's the best way to contact me.
Thanks so much, man. It's always great to connect again.
Yeah, of course, Peter.